Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Tuesday episode of The Lock Shop. Always a busy one, no doubt about that. Nielsen and Hustler back with you once again. Give us a follow on Twitter at Lock Shop Bets. And if you're watching on the live stream, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Just search The Lock Shop on all your podcasting platforms. Huss, what is up, brother?
Well, what is up? Looking forward to this Canadian Open, CFL kickoff on the weekend, Dusty. And hey, listen, great run by the Oilers. I certainly was hoping for a much longer series. But for you, at least, now you can get ready for to go dive head first into the Canadian Football League season and won't have the overlap from what was an amazing playoff run. But it's time for some three-down ball.
It is time for some football. The 3 hours that I would have been watching Game 5 on Wednesday can now be put towards prep for 2 football games I've got to do this weekend back-to-back, so I can use the time. Let's just say that. But, Huss, I mean, I think you hit Cale Makar over. I think you hit Colorado minus 1.5. I mean, that series, from a betting perspective, worked out very well for you, did it not?
Yeah. You know what? And the 3 props we gave out, we had the over 1.5 goals for Makar. That came through. We had the Landeskog points versus Evander Kane. And the only way that was losing was if this series was extended and Kane got a chance to come back in. And unfortunately finished 1 goal short of the McDavid over, which probably happens for sure if they get another game. But yeah, overall, it was good. And listen, I think, you know, as much as it was exciting to see what Draisaitl and McDavid were capable of doing, this Avalanche team is so overdue to get a crack at the trophy. And just from the hockey fan side of things, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do. And of course, there's still a lot of work to be done in the East. I mean, what a start for the New York Rangers. I mean, count me in the group that did not see them jumping out to a 2-0 lead. And I got to say, though, heart of a champion, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they were staring 3-0 in the face on Sunday afternoon and managed to come back, get that big win. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. But yeah, this is a good time. You know, we're down to the nitty gritty of both the NBA and the National Hockey League. And of course, baseball going on. Blue Jays playing some great ball as of late, and Canadian Open and CFL kickoff. So no shortage of things to sprinkle on right now. And yes, thank you to Cale Makar and Landeskog. We've got a little more scratch for this week's show.
We've got a lot to get to. As Huss mentioned, we'll get to the Canadian Open. CFL opens Thursday night. We'll give you some Thursday night picks today. And then on Friday's episode, we'll set up for the rest of week 1 in the CFL. We'll get to some NBA action for tomorrow's game in the association. But let's start with NHL action tonight. And Huss, you mentioned it, man. This series has been quite the scene. The New York Rangers may I'm not saying it's for sure, but they may forever regret not finishing off the Tampa Bay Lightning when they were up 2-0 in Game 3 to let that one slide away and give a monster of a team some life in that series. I can't even really criticize the Rangers for doing it because it's Tampa, but you were in a pretty juicy spot to take a stranglehold and they let it slip away. So how does that carry over into tonight, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I think that the Rangers will be I think you're right. I mean, there definitely is some regret that there was a great opportunity to take a 3-0 stranglehold. But despite the fact that that's not the most playoff experienced team, I think they know full well that even getting that third win means nothing. It's doing the full job and winning. And hey, they've done it twice through 7-game series so far. And now we said they're moving up a couple of weight classes, certainly in the goaltending department, but also with the team that they're playing. That being said, I think they're in this series. They absolutely are. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes the distance. But I think tonight Tampa builds off the momentum that they got in that third period. I think that barn is going to be bananas right from the get-go. I think they really have been able to, invigorate their fan base, because the one thing that John Cooper's team does not lack, and that is confidence and poise as well. And we saw that in spades in game number 3. I think this is the game that Tampa really does jump on them. They've essentially been playing catch-up for 3 games. I think for the first time in this series, they're the ones that will be getting up. And that's why I think I'm going to take a swing at the puck line tonight at -1.5. I mean, we know how these things work. In a playoff game, if you are up a goal late, you're probably getting an empty netter, or this thing's going to overtime. I mean, rarely do you see extended amount of time with the empty goal net where something doesn't go in on the other side. So I think there's value at the plus 154. To maybe get back a little that we lost early on in the series, thinking that Tampa was going to win in Madison Square Garden. So at plus 154 tonight on the puck line, I certainly think that Vasilevskiy has a strong game. I mean, he's played really well. I have to say, I was talking to Dave Poulin about this yesterday on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Maybe the thing that surprised me the most about this series so far has been the New York Rangers' ability to create grade A scoring chances through killer seam passes across that have put Vasilevskiy completely out of position. And it's been amazing. I mean, and obviously a big part of that is the guys that are, as Pooley said, the quarterbacks, the guys that are chucking the rock. But they know that these passes can come from anywhere. They're able to jump on them, and they've been putting them in. That being said, I really like Tampa tonight. I think we have a 2-2 series heading back to Madison Square Garden and a best of 3 to meet the Avalanche in the final. And I'm going to take a swing at the puck line tonight with the Lightning at home at minus 1.5 at plus 154.
Yeah, and I'm going to ride with you. I'll just play it a little bit safer. I'll just take Tampa to get this thing done in regulation at minus 104 tonight. And you know what? The biggest thing here for me is we've seen Vasilevskiy's record in, games where they can eliminate the opposition. And he stepped up big in those games. And you're right about the Rangers flinging that puck around the offensive zone. Saw it in the last series, too. They've done it great here. But this is one of those games where Vasilevskiy looks at it and goes, if you fall down 3-1, you're in a tough spot moving forward here against no matter who it is, let alone a New York Rangers team that's faced a lot of adversity so far in the postseason. So I think Vasilevskiy goes into full-blown Vasilevskiy lockdown mode tonight. And, I mean, when we talk about if you and I can see some of the weaknesses here in Tampa Bay's game that the Rangers are taking advantage of and exposed a little bit, you're telling me Tampa Bay's not going to button those up a little bit for sure. So I would think if Tampa's going to have a game in this series where they do take over from start to finish, I would probably think it's this one tonight. So you can roll with them minus 1.5, get some better value at plus 154. And as long as they come away with a victory tonight prior to overtime, I'm going to cash at minus 104 tonight. So I think we found a couple of ways to get some pretty decent value on a Tampa Bay Lightning team tonight, Huss, which is really what we're always trying to find.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if we think they're gonna win. I mean, it's minus 172 on the money line. That, of course, keeps you in the mix for an overtime game. But I think maybe a couple of these alternate bets. I see the puck lines drop down to plus 150, just a little bit less from where I got it last night. And just while we're at it, if you head over to Coolbet right now on the NHL page, they do have numbers for the Cup final for both scenarios. Right now, if the Rangers were to win this series, Colorado would be minus 278 and the Rangers would be plus 225. If Tampa is able to make it through, Tampa would be a plus 155 underdog and the Avalanche are at 189. And what's interesting right now, so the Avalanche are minus 213 to win the Cup, which is basically right in the middle of that minus 278 number if they play the Rangers, or the minus 189 number if they play the Lightning. So if you do like the Avalanche, you've got a decision to make right now. Do you bet a particular matchup because you like the number better than how it's going to end up when we actually do have it? Or do you just simply jump on the Avalanche at minus 213? I guess if you think that they're going to play the Rangers, that's the bet because you'll obviously have a better number. But if you do think they're going to play the Lightning, you're probably better off just jumping on the minus 189 right now. And if the Rangers win, that would be a no bet.
I don't mind the numbers on these East teams right now for a couple of reasons. One, Colorado's going to be coming off a major long layoff by the time it's all said and done. And two, both of these teams bring something to the table that Colorado has not even had a sniff of yet. And that is one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. Colorado has had to go through Nashville without one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. They were in tough against Binnington until they hurt him. And then they had Mike Smith, who was classic Mike Smith in that series, roller coaster along the way. So Shesterkin and Vasilevskiy are a completely different monster that the Colorado Avalanche are going to have to face, whoever it is. So to see those numbers on those other teams right now, I mean, I don't mind those numbers. I know Cale Makar's like next level freak, but both of those teams are rolling in with elite defensemen as well. So I think I like the value on the East teams right now, but that's something we'll get to when we get to the Stanley Cup final. But
you certainly will. Well, and by the way, how much Mike Smith hate was coming in at 10-12-60 this morning? Was it a lot on Smith, or did people just sort of, they knew what the situation was and moved on from it, considering it was the end of the year?
I think if I had to say if one player was identified more than others, the answer would be Smith. But there was a lot of people who were just happy with the run and see how it goes. But the next 5 weeks are going to be very interesting in this market. Let's just say that. Well, you get it. I mean, you're in Winnipeg. It's
God,
exciting
dude.
times.
I mean, we've had records. We had a record May, YouTube, podcast, everything, smashing records, basically just because Barry Trotz got fired, and we can have our daily episode of Trotz Watch and talk about
which is amazing, because like here on Oil Stream and Two Guys, record months too, because of in the playoffs. But I saw it over the last few years with the Oilers in the offseason, man. Offseason numbers are insane in Canadian markets. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, last year, Chevy went out and signed, the two defensemen, and that was basically it. We'll see in the summer. It was a little bit quiet. There wasn't a lot to talk about. This year, it's the exact opposite with Winnipeg. And listen, we'll be looking forward to seeing what happens in the Stanley Cup final and the rest of this series. But the real intriguing stuff is happening off the ice right now. By the way, how about Cassidy getting canned yesterday? I didn't see that one coming.
Came out of nowhere. It'd be very interesting to see if he has a job somewhere to start next year and what the heck's going to happen in Boston with that. That one was totally caught me off guard. Weird timing too, like during the playoffs and everything's going on. It almost makes me feel like something happened. They're like, we got to cut him loose right now. So that was strange. Lots of hockey talk as we work our way through the offseason as well. And we'll find ways for you to bet on the offseason as well with our friends at CoolBet. But let's slide over to the association where Game 3 will happen tomorrow night. It will be in Boston, Huss. And we're both finding some ways to make some plays on the Warriors here. You're going to go with the spread. Let me lay out your thoughts for us here.
Well, I mean, listen, the Warriors should be up 2-0 in this series. The way they choked in the fourth quarter against Boston in game number 1, it was stunning. I still can't believe that it happened. However, the way they came back in game number 2 was really, really impressive. Now, you'll recall my bet for this series beforehand was plus 205 for this thing to go to 7. And I still think it's very much on track for that. I mean, we'll see what happens once we get to 5 and 6 games. Obviously, you're just hoping that the other team wins to get it done. But going on the road, I think the Warriors realize that they owe the Celtics one and absolutely have to build off that game 2 win and get at least one at the Garden to get this thing back on serve, if you will. And I think this number is basically going to be the same. I mean, whoever is at home is going to be getting about 3.5 points. I think the game 2 closed at 4.5, but this was essentially what it opened at. And listen, I just think that the defense of the Warriors, they figured out what they need to do to limit Boston's opportunities. And listen, the numbers that the Celtics had shooting in the first couple games, game 1 particular, was, I mean, just simply not sustainable. The Warriors, however, though, we know Steph Curry's the best shooter of all time. You've got some other guys that can really do it, but he is the guy leading the way. So I think we're going to have a real close game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors win game 3 outright. And I think they'll play with a real sense of urgency because they lost at home. So I'm going to take the points plus 3.5, minus 109. And I'll probably take a look at the money line sprinkle as well.
I'm just not confident enough to go with the Celtics minus 3.5. I do think they get one of these 2 games at home, and it's even at 2 games apiece heading back to Golden State. But I like this. I like the Warriors over 104.5 points. It's paying minus 118. They have not scored less than 108 in 8 straight games. Like, for the Warriors teams of the past, and any team really with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and a couple of the other weapons that they have there from deep as well, 104.5 points is a rather pedestrian total for that group. Like, that is one of those guys getting hot for one quarter, and they're going to push over that total. So I look back at their last 8, and they scored 108 in game 1 of this series. They scored 109 once in the last round. And outside of that, all the games they've been higher scoring than that. So Warriors 104.5. They got to score 105 points or more, and you're going to cash here at minus 118. So I'm not too sure where I come out on the plus 3.5 or minus 3.5. So I'm going to ride with the Warriors to have a decent game offensively. To me, that's all that is for them. So I like that.
Yeah, like whether they win or lose is going to depend on how they play defense. But you can almost take to the bank that the Warriors are going to be lighting up the scoreboard at a rate that they do. By the way, series right now is basically a pick 'em just off of it. Golden State minus 111, Celtics minus 105. And if you do like the Celtics, who have home court advantage right now, not a bad number, right around even money, considering that they do already have the split right now and are coming home for the next 2 games.
All right, we'll get to the Canadian Open in just a second, but the CFL kicks things off on Thursday night. Calgary gets the Montreal Alouettes. I will be in Winnipeg for the Bombers and Red Blacks on Friday, and then I'll wrap up the weekend in Vancouver with the Lions and the Elks on Saturday. Very much looking forward to seeing all 4 of these teams this weekend, and I'm really looking forward to just sitting down on Thursday night and watching some Canadian Football League. And it's interesting because we already got a bunch of movement. Huss, let's talk about this Calgary-Montreal game and where the total is at and what exactly has happened here over the last 24 hours.
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, we were busy doing a bunch of stuff for Winnipeg Sports Talk, and I didn't notice this until you pulled this screen up. I did my picks late last night, as I normally do, and sent them over to you at God knows what time. And at that point, Calgary was a 3-point favorite, which is essentially, home field. And listen, I think Calgary had a really impressive preseason. I do like Montreal overall, but I think there's going to be a big bounce back season for Bo Levi Mitchell. And I like them at -3. I was stunned to see in the matter of a few hours that line moved to 6.5 for Calgary. And as you mentioned, now, by the way, the 6.5 is plus 135.
Yeah.
So, that number is considerably off from what it would normally be. You've got listen, if you like Montreal to win this game, there's an alternate line of Montreal minus 2.5 at plus 160 and Calgary plus 2.5 at minus 200. As far as zero, it's essentially, the money line is minus 172 and plus 140. So I'm feeling pretty good about having Calgary at -3 right now. There is part of me that thinks, maybe I'll jump on the Alouettes at plus 6.5. And you'll have a nice 3-point spot where you could actually middle the bet and win both of them. That being said, I think I'll probably just chill, feel good that I got in at the right time, and hopefully start the season off 1-0 with the Calgary Stampeders covering 3 points on Thursday night CFL kickoff.
And with Stanback being limited, I'm just like, I don't know if I want to hop in anything right now. I mean, personally, I might sprinkle Calgary money line a little bit in this situation, opening up at home the way that they are. But I'm going to go with under 47.5. Very much lots of talk in the offseason about scoring down in the Canadian Football League without people realizing that one defense alone in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers essentially was dropping that total by 3 or 4 points because they were all-time good last year. But I look at what happened in the preseason with these two teams and their quarterbacks. And Bo Levi Mitchell threw a couple of interceptions in his game and then didn't play in the second game. And then the Montreal Alouettes had a scenario where Vernon Adams threw a bunch of picks. Then Trevor Harris came in and threw a pick on the very next play. So I don't know if either of these quarterbacks are ready to come out and light the world on fire. If Stanback's limited, that's going to change Montreal's options offensively. So I like this number. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit lower by the time we get to kickoff on Thursday. So I'm gonna say get on that under 47.5 right now in Calgary and Montreal for the season opener, Huss. And I don't want to bet a bunch of unders, especially in the CFL, but I think this situation on Thursday night leads me to lean towards the under.
Well, and here's interesting. I mean, just some food for thought, I guess. I think we've seen over the last couple of years that the unders early in the season last night were coming in at like 80 or 85%. Yeah. I mean, for all there was all the questions, what happened to the scoring in the Canadian Football League? And we're comparing numbers from earlier, and that was true. And I guess we're seeing some lower totals. I mean, totals for the game, 47.5, 47.5, 46.5, and 48. That's sort of where I think we ended up last year. But there might be some value, at least early on in the season, before these offenses really get going, to maybe lean under, if you're essentially, stuck on one side or the other.
All right, and like we said on Friday's episode, we will have the rest of the week for you in the Canadian Football League. It is nice in the CFL because you can just bet all the games every week. Like, we can just lay out picks for you every single week, all the games when you have the 4 games to get to. So that's nice. I'm looking forward to Friday's episode there. Huge couple of weeks here. We get the Canadian Open this week. Next week, the Canadian Grand Prix on Formula One. So a couple of major events. Spotlight really on our country here over the next couple of weeks, us starting with the Canadian Open, obviously.
Are the Pit Stop Pals going to be heading to the F1?
Buddy,
or
the Pit Stop Pals would
busy?
love to be there, but one of the members of the Pit Stop Pals will be here at Edmonton doing a CFL game that weekend, so it's going to be tough to make it work. But one day, I am going to get to a Grand Prix somewhere. I promise you that.
All right, let's get to the Canadian Open. First of all, this is just so great to have this event back. It's been 2 years. The timing on the calendar, COVID, the border, everything that we've been through has conspired to take this tournament away, but it is back. And of course, the biggest story going into this event, the RBC Canadian Open, was that the poster boy for RBC Golf told both RBC, the Canadian Open, and the PGA Tour to shove it, and is apparently going and playing for the Saudis for $125 million. Of course, I'm speaking about Dustin Johnson. So it's too bad that DJ won't be there. But, the focus is not on the guys going to live. It's on the players in the field for this event. And I'll tell you what, Dusty, we've got a great field. And I'm going right to the top of the leaderboard. I almost never, ever take the favorite. And we really have 2. We've got Scotty Scheffler at 10-1, Rory McIlroy and JT at 11-1, Cam Smith 14, Sam Burns 16. And then you get into the 20s with Fitzpatrick and Lowry. Here's the thing with Scheffler. He has been so good, so consistently this season. There's been a couple of hiccups. He's basically already the player of the year. We can pretty much shut the door on that award already with the green jacket and the other wins. But to me, he blew it a couple of weeks ago heading into the Memorial, and he had that lead and, ended up getting caught on Sunday afternoon. And I think that was bound to happen. But at the same point, with heading into the U.S. Open, a very important very important tournament to get your game right for that next major championship. And, when we talk about going low, the previous winning scores when Rory won it, was -22. DJ won it at -23 in 2018. Of course, it hasn't been played the last couple of years at St. George's. Scheffler is just such a complete game. And when he's rolling it, both the short game, sinking his putts, and just driving it straight, there's not really anyone better right now. So I think I'm just going to swallow it, put a bigger bet on Scotty Scheffler, and think that he gets back into the winner's circle. That's my number 1 pick. I'm also going to take Matty Fitzpatrick.
He's a sexy pick this week, isn't he?
Well, he is, and part of it is the number. We're looking at these other guys. Considering what it is, he had like a T2, a T5 over the course of his last 3 events. He has been right there. And when he gets hot, he can get birdies in bunches. And I think that's what you're going to need to do to win this tournament. So he's been knocking at the door. He's been contending. I feel that he's somewhat due. The 20-1 number on Fitzpatrick, the way that he's playing, I think really gives us some good value. And then I can't not have a Canadian on my card. And I know Corey Connors is the guy that most people are jumping on at 23-1. But let me throw out the name Adam Hadwin. I think Hadwin's had a great season so far after somewhat of a disappointing year last year. And I don't know if you saw him get fired up last week with his ace at the Memorial, but he's been consistently in the mix far more than he'd been the last couple years in tour. Of course, being a Canadian, this is a huge event for him. And I think in some ways, all the attention on Corey Connors might be sort of sneaky. Now, listen, winning the tournament will be tough. I certainly don't mind, the top 10 at plus 350 or top 20 at plus 165. But if they're going to hang a 50-1 on Adam Hadwin, who's been playing some great golf as of late in his own national tournament, I'm going to jump on him. And quickly, one other long shot sprinkle, 300-1. Shout out to our boy, Aaron Cockrell. Manitoba's own has been playing on the European Tour and is making his PGA Tour debut this week at St. George's in the RBC Canadian Open. So wouldn't that be a Cinderella story? 300-1. Got to throw a couple bucks on AC to see what he can do. And hey, fingers crossed. I'll probably be looking at some cut numbers because it would be cool. If you're making your first your first tournament in the PGA. I mean, the first thing you got to do is make the weekend, and it's been a great opportunity for him. He's been a top player so far in the European Tour. So a lot of people around here talking about him, and hopefully the rest of Canada gets to meet him by playing on Saturday and Sunday at the RBC Canadian Open.
Would love one of these guys to be in it. Would absolutely love one of these guys to be in it for sure. That would be great. I know there's some pressure on him, obviously, but it would be awesome to see that support for them on a Sunday. I'm going to go with Sam Burns. Dude's just been absolutely red hot. I mean, this guy's been on an absolute tear. He's not far behind, the top end guys. And this is an event where, it's pretty top heavy. I would think that's why you're looking at what we're doing here. You got Scheffler, you got Fitzpatrick, you got Burns, you got Lowry, you got Tony Finau, we'll get to in a second. Burns is plus 1,600 right now, and you look at what he's able to accomplish. Here's his last 6 events, Huss. He won Valspar, then he missed the cut at the Masters. He finished second in Zurich, then he missed the cut at Byron Nelson, then at the PGA Championship, T20, and then he won at Colonial. So in his last 6 events, he has won 2 of them and finished second the other time. 50% of his last 6 events, he's been 1 or 2. So the guy's been absolutely lights out. He's been one of the best players on the tour so far this year. And in a field where, you got some top end guys and then the rest of the field kind of falls off a little bit, I really like his chances at 16-1. I've been riding with Shane Lowry. Eventually he's going to get it done. I don't want to miss out on that. He's been playing very well. Now lately he's fallen off a little bit. His T23, T32, his last 2 times out, really a 76 that killed him at Memorial that really hurt. Other than that, he actually had a pretty good event. But prior to that, second, T13, T12, T3, T3, 13. So he's been very consistent all year. I think it's just a matter of time until he gets one here, and I don't want to miss out on it when he does. And then I'm going to go with your boy, Tony Finau. I think he was 64 for 64 from 7 feet or closer, T4 last week. My question for you is, why are you not on Tony Finau? What am I missing here? Because this is the type of field where I think he can contend.
Of course I'm going to be on Tony Finau. I was going with Scheffler in 5th. I needed to put a Canadian in, but the card will not be complete without a sprinkle.
Okay.
Like 2,700 is a great number on Tony, to be honest, as well. And he's been sort of up and down so far this year, but I think when we look and see, his recent results, there certainly is reason to think that certainly I think he's
right now
coming up. Well, for sure. And, you're going to need that coming up at the US Open. And in a lot of ways, I mean, you look at this, what he was, the PGA, he was T30, T4 at the Charles Schwab Challenge, which is the last time he was there. He had a T2 at the Mexico Open. Wells Fargo wasn't as great. And other than that, it's sort of just middling results for him. 33rd, 35, 29, 35. But the goal is to peak heading into the majors for Tony Finau. And hey, no better time to start playing well ahead of the US Open. 27-1, I think it's great value. He should be, in my opinion, sort of in that mix with the Lowrys and the Fitzpatricks in and around 20.
There you go. 6 picks for the Canadian Open. Really looking forward to this event. Looking forward to this weekend in general in sports, buddy. It's gonna be a great time. We're gonna have some hockey. We're gonna have some basketball. We got the Canadian Open. You mentioned the Blue Jays have been playing well. Canadian Football League is back. There's never a downtime in sports unless there's a global pandemic and everything gets shut down for at least 4 months, essentially.
You got it. And of course, you're gonna be here in the Peg for Friday Night Football on TSN. I can tell you the weather
people
looks
excited,
like
buddy?
Great. Oh, hell yeah.
Stoked, eh?
Hell yeah. Dude,
I'm not talking about me coming, but I'm talking about a chance to go for a three-peat.
Did you say Dustin Nielsen will be in Winnipeg? Yeah, no. Hey, listen, it's amazing the excitement about the team. They did the ring event a couple weeks ago when season ticket holders got
those rings are awesome.
That ring, everyone fired up about it. And the bottom line is that just the atmosphere around this team is so much fun. And it's just been full of so much success after such a long drought of nothing of the sort. So, and the fact that Walters was able to bring back the majority of the core of this team that's gone back to back and give themselves a realistic shot to create their own piece of CFL history. And the other thing is that, since they moved to the stadium and the teams played the way they have, the games are just so much fun out at IG Field. So I can tell you the parking lots will be hopping before the game. The tailgate area outside the stadium will be on, and they'll raise another banner for another Grey Cup championship, and then get out and get after it against our old friend Paul Appolice and the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Yeah.
And of course, the Bombers didn't play Ottawa either at home or on the road. So this is the first game of Lapo going up against his old team, where of course he got his Grey Cup ring as the OC under Mike O'Shea.
I'm making a note of that right now. That hadn't come across my my desk yet. That's a really good tip. It's a completely different Red Blacks team this year too, so I'm very interested to see what they bring to the table on Friday night. So Huss, I will see you in Winnipeg later in the week, my man. And once again, if you've been listening to the Lock Shop podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate the comments. And if you've been watching on the live stream, make sure you do subscribe to the podcast. It's all brought to you by our partners, our wonderful partners at CoolBet, where you can bet on everything that we've discussed today. And when you sign up for an account, use the code LOCKSHOP so they know we sent you. Huss, before I let you go, Winnipeg Sports Talk, my man. What's coming up today?
Yeah, well, actually, today's going to be a big show. John Hodge is going to join us. We'll talk a little CFL, looking ahead to Friday night for both the Bombers and get his thoughts on the upcoming season. Scott Billick's going to pop by. Mike McIntyre, I was just mentioning Manitoba's Aaron Cockrell on the European tour. Mike actually went to Germany last week to follow him on the European tour and is now coming back and doing the RBC Canadian Open. So we'll talk a little Jets off season with Mike, but also get the story on Cockrell going into his PGA Tour debut. And 2022 Lady Byng Trophy winner and 47 goal scorer Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets is going to pop by, talk about the award that he got last night. So, going to be a great show. If you haven't checked us out before, 1 p.m. Central, Monday to Friday on YouTube. Just put in Winnipeg Sports Talk, hit that red subscribe button and join us daily. And, of course, you can get it as well wherever you get your podcasts. And just quickly, Dusty, as you mentioned, we just picked the Calgary-Montreal game, which is the CFL kickoff game on Thursday. We'll do another Lock Shop edition on Friday and pick those other 3 games. But CoolBet does have all the CFL futures up right now. Grey Cup winners. There's rushing props, receiving props, passing props, and win totals on all of the teams. So if you do want to get those in, don't wait for the Friday episode of the Lock Shop. Get on over to CoolBet and you want to make any of those wagers before the game on Thursday kicks off.
Enjoy your week, everybody. Huss, we'll talk to you Friday, man.
See you in the peg.